Good evening, Vancouver. Welcome back to Canucks After Dark, September 23rd. We are 21 hours away from Vancouver Canucks preseason hockey. I'm assuming the game's at 7. We are 2 weeks away from opening night, 2 weeks and 2 days away from opening night on October 9th. We have training camp done. We have young stars done. We have everything done except the actual hockey games starting tomorrow. As always, here with Canuck Clay. How are we doing today, Clay?
Parker, I'm great. I'm so good. Yeah, you're right. I keep saying this. We actually have results. We have expectations, I should say. We are ready to go with some games, 5 games in 7 nights. And then before we know it, we're dropping the puck at home, kicking off our season against the Calgary Flames on October the 9th. And then it's just going to be hitting the ice running, so to speak. So I'm in a good mood. I hope you are too. We look good. You're decked out in that undefeated team's jersey. If the Canucks start out 3-0 like the Seahawks, I think everything is going to be just fine.
Absolutely. And I'll acknowledge it now. My camera will keep freezing throughout the night. I don't know why. It's messed up. But luckily it's an audio show first, I guess. So
yes.
Sorry in advance. There it goes again. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about tonight. The entire training camp to review. We've got the Elias Pettersson, Jake DeBrusk, Jonathan Lekkerimaki line. Will we see that night one of the preseason or whatever game they're playing? We have Demco's Popliteus muscle drama. We've
Nicely done.
Niels Hoglander being a standout at camp. We've got the Kevin Lankinen signing. We actually have stuff to talk about. And like I said, we're 2 weeks away from a season that we actually have high expectations for, right? And that's super, super exciting and super cool.
Expectations, it's a funny thing. This time last year, Parker, we were debating, making our ill-fated predictions of Canucks will finish 3rd or 4th, and this guy's only going to get 40 points. And a year later, people are considering the Canucks as a Stanley Cup, not a favorite, but a contender. When have we said that? And certainly not since we started the show together 4 seasons ago. And it's pretty cool. Speaking of cool, I just want to acknowledge this right away. Lucas acknowledging his membership. His loyalty to Canucks After Dark for 2 years. Thank you, Lucas. And follows that up with a $5 donation. Back at it. Here we go again. We are indeed ready for a brand new Canucks season. Yes, indeed. And congratulations, Lucas. 7 years working for the club. That is awesome. Hopefully you don't get the 7-year itch and go away from it. Keep on going. Thank you for your support.
Thank you very much, Lucas.
Yes.
Yeah. Last year there was a sense of mystery going in, right? There was sort of a will they, won't they vibe, right? Are they going to finally make that push? Remember the odds were about 50-50 for most of the odds makers on the Canucks being a playoff team. And they erased that doubt pretty quickly, right? Started super hot. And the whole way, right? 10 games into the season, 20 games into the season, there was always that itch in the back of my head saying, well, the wheels have to fall off, right?
Yeah.
And they sort of did, but they didn't until March, right? Yeah. The wheels made it until March, until Demco went down and the team was able to battle out and win the Pacific Division. And now we're going into this year and it's like, yeah, the expectations are top 2 in the Pacific, right? Edmonton's still Edmonton. And they have a little bit of turnover and who knows, but Edmonton's still Edmonton, right? I don't think they're going to have that start that they had at the beginning of last year.
No.
I think they're going to be mad that they lost in the Stanley Cup final last year. I think they're going to be a problem. But the expectations for this team should be top 2 in the Pacific, top 5 in the Western Conference.
Yeah,
and that's they should be a team that is like, hey, they should be playing at home 4 games in the first playoff series. That's what the expectation should be for this team, and see how far you can get off of that.
Yeah, great point about the wheels. And thank God the Canucks got off to such a good start, because you're right. As soon as the All-Star break happened, we started to see a little bit of slippage, especially in power play and in their shooting percentage. And then, you're right. Then Demco goes down, and then they try and bring him back. And we know how that ended up. That's why we got to the Popliteus or whatever you called it, the muscle thing. But yeah, you can't expect Edmonton to start off so poorly. You also can't expect the Canucks to start off so well. Maybe they each come a bit to regress to the norm a little bit, to the mean. But yeah, I fully expect the Canucks and the Oilers to be battling out. You look at the Oilers, their forward group is so. We think the Canucks forward group is deep. Look how deep the Edmonton Oilers forward group is, but I still give the Canucks the advantage, defense and goaltending. Yeah, we don't have to worry about a Canucks Oilers matchup just yet. We got 6 months to preview that. But overall, it's so exciting, Parker, to be doing the show, doing this with you, and for us to be excited and not that we dread the season, but right out the gate, we expect them to win games now, especially with a pretty mediocre schedule to start. Maybe they are going to get off to a really good start like last season too. The question is, how are they going to be playing? How healthy are they going to be when they make it to the playoffs, with both of us expect them to be at the middle of April?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that's the thing, right? We're sort of, it's exciting to sort of look ahead, and that's how the NHL is designed things.
Yeah.
Now. Like they want you to be like, hey, you're going to run into the same team in the playoffs, a few years in a row, because it builds that rivalry, and it can be a little frustrating. See Toronto and Boston, right? They keep running into them, and it's great. It's fun on the outside, but we could sort of look at it and be like, well, most likely when we get to that point, if we're projecting that the Oilers and Canucks are going to be 1-2 in the Pacific, that means they're going to be probably 1-2, or the two teams that meet in the second round. Yeah. And that's going to be a fun matchup. And obviously, top 6 wise, Oilers will have that edge. Bottom 6 wides, Canucks will have that edge. Vasily Podkolzin and Derek Ryan and Corey Perry on the line together is probably not going to go that well. And I think the Canucks have a lot better depth. So it's definitely interesting to look that far ahead. But, what's really exciting is let's see, some line combos. Let's see tomorrow night, right? This is the home game.
Yeah. So this is the non-Petey Hughes DeBrusk game.
This is the Miller Besser game.
Yes. So yeah, and we can get into this, but yeah, you're right. You're going to see split squads: Miller Besser on one squad, Petey and DeBrusk on the other squad, split up the defensemen, even the Hughes and Hronek, which that'll be fascinating to see if they actually go into the season like that. So many cool storylines. Yeah, you name them all at the top. What's Daniel Sprong going to do? What's Sherwood and Heinen going to do? How's Lankinen going to do? All these things. Will we actually like Desharnais by the end of the season? No, I think we want to like him. We just want to make sure he's good. So many storylines for sure. And you're right. Will Lekkerimaki actually crack the lineup, given that Blueger might not be ready, although I think he's coming back, and Joshua certainly won't be ready for the start. So there's a spot that opens up suddenly. Actually, I don't think we've been on the show since Joshua made his announcement, or did we?
No, we haven't. That was Tuesday.
So that's another. Yeah. Wow. So much going on.
Yeah, big curveball, right? I mean, that was one of the things we said last Monday. We said, well, one thing we know that's going to be set in stone opening night is the third line, right? Blueger, Garland, and Joshua. Yeah. Obviously, that's not the case. Joshua having testicular cancer, which is successfully removed, which is fantastic. Yeah. But that does, obviously there's a timeline there. There's surgery involved. Yeah. So that does open up that spot, right? Who do you stick there, right? Is that an opportunity? Do you say, man, I kind of wish we still had Vasily Podkolzin kicking around? Maybe not. I think he'd rather have maybe a Kiefer Sherwood in that spot, or maybe Daniel Sprong gets a spin on that line,
or maybe Sammy Blais' eyes lit up.
Maybe, right? That's for a PTO guy who's definitely felt like on the outside looking in, that opens up a little bit of opportunity there, and then it also opens up the. Hey, Lekkerimaki looked really good in camp, right? With Pettersson and DeBrusk. Do you want to get crazy with that and have Höglander on that third line or something, right? Like there's a ton of possibilities that get really interesting in the preseason. Because like you said, tomorrow night we're not going to get that Pettersson DeBrusk combo is going to be night 2, which luckily for us is just Wednesday, right? And I haven't been this excited to watch preseason hockey in a while. Right. These are like there's so much up in the air with how these line combos are going to go that like who do they try with Miller and Besser night 1, right? And how does that work, right? When they get to night 1 of preseason, they say, the Lekkerimaki and camp thing was fun, but it's going to be Höglander, right? And then they run with that. There's a ton of things up in the air.
Yeah. What was your reaction when you heard the Dakota Joshua news?
Anytime you see the word statement from in a tweet, not ideal. I'm bad at reading things to the point where I don't read things linearly. I kind of skim. And so like one of the first things I read was successfully remove the tumor, because I just sort of like jumped around and I was like, that's good. Wait, that's bad, but good. And then I'm like jumping through and I'm like, okay. Healing from surgery is fantastic. And it seems like, that should be anything. That's one of the benefits of being a professional athlete, right? You can check yourself for that stuff. I'm sure it's part of their sort of regimen, and then you have the best medical treatment out there to get that taken care of as quickly as possible. So I'm sure they'll be monitoring that, as closely as possible. And, you have to imagine that he's in good hands.
Yeah. And, there's a small part of me that almost went to like horrible Canucks luck, I think, in Demco and Besser's blood clot, but that quickly, that didn't supersede, obviously. Who cares about the hockey? Let's hope that and pray that he recovers fully, right, and quickly, and that if that he can just resume normal life. Because anytime you hear cancer, we've all been affected by cancer, either knowing someone or losing someone that's had it, or even fighting it ourselves. If you're in that case out there, anyone watching. So I think that for me, Parker, it always grounds me, puts things in perspective. Yes, we love creating content. Yes, we love spending money and energy and time on this team that we so dearly love. But that's pretty scary. Like I just, my heart went out to him, the man, the person, and just hopefully he didn't feel alone. Hopefully he was free of pain. And it's going to be a long road back, but it looks like it's a road back that is doable. And then we're going to erupt in cheers when he takes the ice for the first time. That's going to be a real cool moment for sure. Yeah.
The guy's 28. Right. It's hard to get that sort of, like, he doesn't play like a 28-year-old. Like, he's out there, like a big bruiser. Like he looks old. Like he feels older than that. And it's like, yeah, this guy's, basically to the day a year older than I am. Right. Like,
great.
There's definitely that side of it to think about. So
yeah, exactly. A year older than you and 22 years younger than me.
Yeah. And he makes a cool $2.5 million a year.
Yeah, that's a little,
So, I'm hoping he's doing well. There's check yourself.
Let's keep going.
Obvious message here.
Absolutely. Let's keep going with reactions, because then we can put it all together and kind of predict maybe some lineups and stuff. Your reaction to Kevin Lankinen, $875,000.
This keeps happening with this management group. We keep being told, like, hey, this guy will eventually come here, right? It happened with Nikita Zadorov, and we said, oh man, that's going to be expensive, right? Mm-hmm. And then it was a lot cheaper than we thought it was going to be to get Nikita Zadorov. Same thing. My mind's blanking here, but like every single guy that we feel like they're going to go get, it happens way. Daniel Sprong was the one that came to mind, right? Yes. I hear like, oh, the Canucks are on Daniel Sprong. It's like, hey, it's probably going to be a couple mil, right? Because he's got some cachet and he can score. Nothing, right? Mm-hmm. Kevin Lankinen, $2 million all day.
The Shelov's contract,
$2 million.
Yeah, that was cheap too. The Shelov's contract was cheap too.
Yeah. Shelov's, he got less than we expected. Lankinen, he's going to make $2 million. And then a month later, basically, how about $875K? And the Canucks aren't even hitting LTIR. Like, that is, it's crazy how nice this is to have in a cap world where, like, look, I don't care about the money. I care about the number that you have access to. Mm-hmm. It's fantastic. It's fantastic work that this team keeps doing. And I mean, you look at this goalie group that the Canucks now have, right? You have Demco at 5.
Yep.
And sure, maybe, I'm thinking, well, how many games did Demco play this year? 40? Like, it's
who knows?
You want him to play enough to be ready for the playoffs, but you want him to play not enough to be hurt, right? But if he's making 5, and then you have Shelov's under 1, and you have Lankinen under 1, that's a pretty good trio for under $7 million. That will only ever, unless you're carrying all 3, will be under $6 million on your cap at a time.
Right.
If they have to put, I know they don't want to dip into LTI, but in theory, if Demco was on LTI, then you have a less than $2 million tandem.
Yes.
Which is just absurd. It's such an easy win of a deal.
It's funny, Parker, like, we haven't even played a preseason game yet, and already people are saying, well, what happens when Demco comes back and he's healthy? So the first part of me says, well, let's worry about that when it happens. But admittedly, you have 3 options. You either send Shelov's down to the minors because he does not have to clear waivers, so that seems easy. You trade Lankinen and get something back, trade him to a team that needs goaltender insurance if you're confident that Demco and Shelov's can take you the rest of the way, and maybe you get an asset back that you can plug in the lineup. Or you keep 3 goalies, and instead of 3 healthy skaters, as healthy scratches, you bring that down to 2, 1 forward, 1 defenseman. So I think this whole story is going to be interesting to watch this entire season. But even that people are already projecting, and even like Friedman and guys like that are talking about these type of scenarios, even though it might be 2 months, 3 months, 4 months down the road.
Yeah, it's funny because it's a good problem to have at that point,
Yeah.
right? Your top 3 goalie comes back, and you have to figure out, do we send down the guy who was really good for you in the playoffs last year, or the backup who in his last 2 seasons had a 908 and a 916 save percentage?
Yeah,
right. Like, what a great problem to have. Like in his career, let's run through. He's played 4 seasons in the NHL, the last 4 seasons as essentially a backup. 2020, 2021, the shortened season, 56 games. He was Chicago's main goalie. Chicago wasn't great. He put up a 909, right? Second year, he played 32 games, put up an 891, struggled a little bit. But again, that's not a good team that he's in front of, right? Then he goes to Nashville as as one of their backups. 19 games played, 916 save percentage. And then last year he was with Nashville, 24 games played with a 908, career save percentage of 905. He's 29, he's got experience, 112 NHL games played. It's such a, like, it's a great backup goalie. And the fact that you pulled that for under $1 million while having the overarching thing of, hey, we might not even keep you for that long because our star goalie is going to come back and we have a really good backup already. I think the move has to be, it's one of those two. It's either you send Shilovs down because I think he's something like 42 games away from waiver eligibility.
He's a long time still.
So you got a long ways to go. Or you could carry 3. You don't need, like, it makes, everyone's always said, you keep 3 guys in the press box and whatever. It really depends on how ready Demco is. Because really, if you're playing, 3-4 times a week, you don't need 3 goalies, right? Because you're going to have guys just sitting. So you should send Shilovs down to play games, right? And maybe if you're going on a long road trip, you say, hey, we're going to call you up. We're going to take you with us, right? And that's fine. Because the team's so close in Abbotsford, and you have, you can probably be fine with 1 forward extra and 1 extra defenseman.
And I think we agree that there's no way Lankinen's clearing waivers, not at 875 for a team that's going to look to get some playoff insurance. So I agree that is the least likely of the 3 scenarios that I proposed. The other thing I want to say about this contract, Parker, is I know you and I kind of agree that the reason why, as much as we like Lankinen, we likely didn't see it happening, because if you're Lankinen, you think you can be a starting goaltender, or at least a 1B. Why would you come to a place where as soon as Demco comes back, he's going to get the lion's share, and you have a guy named Shilovs who basically proved himself in the playoffs? That, to me, speaks, it's a good thing. It speaks to how badly he wanted to get back in the league this year and stop not that he wasn't doing anything, but not being in the league. And secondly, I think it's how much he believes in this Canucks team, because to take less than almost basically league minimum after making $2 million last season, but he's coming to a contender. He's coming to a team, a Finnish goalie coach. He's coming to a team that made such big strides last year. That's an awesome thing. And I hope, Parker, that we're getting to that stage where free agents like DeBrusk, like the Heinens of the world, they're going to start to want to come to Vancouver. Remember how that was the case way back like 15 years ago? And then it kind of dipped a little bit, even though we had the Sedins, but no one wanted to come to a sinking ship. Hopefully that's turned around now.
Yeah. And I wonder what discussions they had about that in the negotiations, right? Like, was it like, hey, we're going to keep you around until Demco's back and then we'll try to find a new home for you? Or was it, hey, we're going to be sending Shilovs down. You and Shilovs will be 1A, 1B to start the season. Once Demco's back, you'll be the backup. And with Demco's injury, who knows how often we're playing him, right? Maybe you're playing, once every 3 games, right? Who knows what that breakdown is. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And then, the other thing is, waiver wise, I think, I'm sure he could have gone somewhere else for the same amount of money, and he probably will get claimed on waivers, especially once other teams have goalie injuries, right? It'll happen. Someone will lose a backup and he'll go, if he went on waivers, they'd pick him up. So, and you think when you get to the playoffs, right? There might be opportunity there if there's more injuries. And for him, I wonder if you've gotten so deep into free agency that, okay, I'm taking a 1-year deal for not very much money, right? I'm sort of stuck there. I want to go to a team where I know I'm getting games at the beginning of the season at the very least, and I know has a very focused defensive structure. that I think will make me look good for next year.
Yeah.
I think that has to be a piece of it as well.
Great point. The other thing is, don't forget, write this down or make a mental note for our predictions episode next season, next week, next Monday. Let's add, if I may, one question. It could be a 3-parter or 3 questions. How many starts does Demco get? How many starts does Shilovs get? And how many starts does Lankinen get? I think that's going to be an awesome question. Yeah. And hopefully
that will be in there for sure.
Add up to 82, but unless one of us messes up. Yeah.
Or they get another goalie. Who knows?
Tolopio, yeah. He gets 3 starts.
Maybe. You never know.
Wow. Okay. So we got your reaction to the Joshua sad news, but hopefully optimistic. We got your reaction to the fact that, that we signed Kevin Lankinen. How about the fact that Thatcher Demko, you've already referenced it once. I like how you dropped it already and you said it so well. I'm not going to try. So Kevin Woodley is saying he actually named today on Donnie Dolly the muscle at the back of the knee that Thatcher Demko is sore, and that basically no one in the world has also experienced, at least in the hockey world.
Yeah, and I feel like I think I searched for this earlier, like right after he said it, and then I searched for it, and I saw an article from a couple of weeks ago that mentioned it as well. So I think it was kind of, I think someone had posted it somewhere, and no one really picked it up. And the reason I said it so early in the show is because I had just listened to the Cambridge Dictionary tell me how to pronounce it, and I wanted to get that out of the way. So yeah, Demko has this injury to the popliteus muscle, which is a stabilizing muscle in the knee. Now, what's really fun is when you get to hear that, hey, this injury that your star goaltender is experiencing has never been experienced by anybody ever, apparently.
Great.
That's cool. You know, like that's when you were talking about, like, you know, sort of referencing the Canucks injury, like that's what it is, right? Yeah. Like how does that happen? So obviously it's one of those things where it's clearly not been a linear recovery, right? He said there was like plateaus, and then he's had a good last couple of weeks, and like it's one of those things where you can't really put a timeline on it because you don't know if you're going to hit another plateau, you're going to hit another wall. But yeah, it's this. I can read Kevin Woodley's quote here. Basically, it's a thin triangle-shaped muscle behind the back of the knee. So we don't know what degree it is. It's a tear, or it's deep under several layers of other muscles. It doesn't do much. It sort of attaches to the top inside of the femur and then back to the tibia. It's what unlocks the knee joint. Has a pretty negligible effect on the flexion of the knee, but it pulls the meniscus out of the way. So it's super rare because it's like under a bunch of other muscles. So I don't know how you pull it. Or tear it or whatever it was. But one of the first things you'll see is the healing time is anywhere from 3 to 16 weeks. Like no one knows anything about this, which sucks.
Yeah. I'm looking for my popliteus right now. That didn't sound good, but I am. And I don't know what I'm reaching for.
Well, it's under other muscles, so you're never going to find it unless you have a scalpel and a high pain tolerance.
Wow. Jay, thank you for the donation. We appreciate you. Yes, Parker did address it at the start of the show. He's got camera issues, so as long as the audio gets through, that's what we care about, and you'll get to see him doing his best robot impression a couple times a minute, but we'll make it work. But thank you, Jay, for the donation. I appreciate you supporting us. So Demko said all the right things. He addressed the media for 11.5 minutes, Parker, and he didn't shy away. And he admittedly, I was giggling because he sounded a little bit evasive, but that's because he has no clue what he's talking about. Like, he knows, but how do you explain it to people who've never have heard of this muscle? And B, you're right. No hockey player has ever suffered this, and maybe half a dozen soccer players maybe have
It's not like it's an MCL sprain.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we've heard of that 1,000 times, right? No, it's like, what are the odds of that? It's
so playing through pain, no surgery, and I guess the last thing you said is the biggest piece. It could be between 3 to 16 weeks. Guess what? 3 weeks mean he's back in mid-October. Basically misses 2 games. Or 16 weeks. Hey, that's 4 months. That's coming back after 4 Nations. So,
well, I don't think it was 3 to 16 from now. I think that was like what WebMD tells you the healing time is. So he was like, the first thing you see when you Google it is it'll be 3 to 16 weeks, which really just nails down that, like, we've seen it 4 times, and one guy had healed in 3 weeks and the other guy took 4 months, and we don't know.
Okay. So 4 months from the injury, that's now. right?
That's what you'd think, right? But I think it's probably a little different for like a general person being healed
Yeah.
and a goaltender in the National Hockey League. They use their
Yes.
knees a little bit more than others do.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Okay.
So yeah, the quote essentially was key message from Demco. He has full confidence he'll get back to 100%. There's no timeline. Yeah, recovery hasn't been linear. He hit a wall during the summer, but has made progress the last few weeks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Are you of the mindset, Parker, that this team is they're going to A, score more, B, they've now another year under Tocchet, his system, his structure, all those things, those buzzwords. Are you of the mind that this team's good enough where they'll be able to at least not thrive, but at least survive while Demko's gone? Or are you worried? I know a lot of people are saying, hey, I don't even feel confident this team's going to contend for a playoff spot anymore because Demko is that important to the team.
I'm a little bit concerned.
Yeah.
Well, you have to keep in mind, Demco played 51 regular season games last year.
Yeah.
Right? He won 35 of them,
Mm-hmm.
which means the Canucks without him won 15 games. So they won like half the games that he didn't play, which isn't great, right? Like that's not fantastic. Now, in theory, ideally, he still plays like 40 games this season.
Yep.
And okay, maybe you're not a 109 point team, maybe you're a 102 point team.
Sure.
I'll take it. Right. So it's a tricky one, right? The team is markedly worse without Thatcher Demko. Absolutely. However, look, he was a 918 goalie last year, right? Not many guys do that. However, if Lankinen's a 908 goalie, like that's like a league average goalie, which is like 902, 903 in that last year. If Kevin Lankinen puts up a 908, this team's fine, right? I have no concerns, right? And the thing is, like, Elias Pettersson, I'm hoping will be better than last year, right? I think Jake DeBrusk adds a lot to this team, right? I think apparently Quinn Hughes has more zip on his shot than he did last year. I don't know if that's an official stat or anything, but what if he's scoring more, right? This team, how did they do in goals for in the league last year? They were 8th in goals for last year. Okay. They could score a handful more goals reasonably. It might be asking a little bit much to have like a big jump, but if they score another, who had the most? Colorado had 304, which is 25 more than the Canucks did. So the Canucks can score even 10 more goals next year. Doesn't sound like a lot. That's probably 3-4 wins, right? Yep. That you add on. Yeah. So yeah, if this team can add on a bit and maybe make up a little bit for the goals saved that Demko had, I do want to see what Demko's goals saved above average was last year. So I'll look that up because I think if we assume that Kevin Lankinen is going to be an average NHL goaltender, right, which I think is pretty fair. That might be a little bit on the hopeful side. But I think that might be fair. Then that should give us a good metric of how many more goals that they'll allow this year. Right. Goals saved above average last year, Demko saved 21.2 more goals than the average goaltender.
Wow.
And keeping that's over 51 games. So if he's only going to play 10 less games, right? That's what 0.4 per game, 10 games. It's 4 goals. That's it.
Yep.
So even if they allow 10 more than the normal, it doesn't matter that much. So that's my hope. My hope is he still plays 40 and then we're fine.
And as you were saying that, talk about 10 goals here, Canucks were 25 behind, the league lead in Colorado. I kept thinking about Mikheyev, and it wasn't just me. There's like Jack says, DeBrusk is a pretty upgrade on Mikheyev. I'm not just going to say all Mikheyev's misses go to DeBrusk, but it's so true.
I saw that one tweet where it's like imagine Elias Pettersson without this guy, and it was Mikheyev with that open net that he like on the backhand that he slid it into the post. Oh. Yeah, like that's got to be 20 points right there, right? Like that's maybe not 20, but it's got to be another like 10, 15. Yep. I think that's a really big impact that's going to have because you're going from 31 point Ilya Mikheyev, who had Elias Pettersson setting him up all year, a guy who scored 11 goals to a guy in Jake DeBrusk, who I think could score 25, pretty reasonably, especially getting fed by Pettersson.
I agree. By the way, Jay, thank you for the back-to-back $3 super stickers. We appreciate you, and thanks for if it's okay if you come in late, and you just join for as much as you can. We are happy that you and that everyone is here indeed. Okay, so now we talked about Joshua, we've talked about Lankinen, we've talked about Demco. Why don't we what's the biggest, the most intriguing battle or decision, and not necessarily a battle, but decision for you? Is it here's a good way of introducing the preseason games. So the Canucks have already promoted in an effort to sell tickets for the Wednesday night game hosting Calgary in Abbotsford. They say it's neutral site, but it's basically our minor league thing. So
both teams, AHL teams, have played in that arena.
You're right. There is history. It is neutral, completely neutral. So you got PD playing, DeBrusk playing, Hughes playing, and Myers playing. Hughes and Myers may be on the same pairing. That's how they'll load up the top pairing. And then obviously PD and DeBrusk on the same line. And you're right. Probably Jonathan Lekkerimaki, at least for game number 1. Question is, Parker, is Jonathan Lekkerimaki going to be on their wing when the season starts?
I doubt it, but wouldn't that be cool? I mean, that's what they did with Besser, essentially, right? Same year. Look, when did we draft him? Was it 2 years ago now?
Yeah.
Was it 2023 draft or 2022 draft?
No, 2022.
It was the Lander 2023, right?
Yes,
so he's 20. That's not an unreasonable time for a forward, especially a winger, to make it or to try to make a push to the NHL, right? He clearly has an NHL caliber shot, right?
Yes. It's
whether or not he has the hockey IQ and everything else to pull that together at the NHL level. That's the big thing. I think, and based on what Tocchet has said, right? And this is a quote from 4 days ago. Rick Tocchet said he was anxious to see Lekkerimaki alongside their top brass, and boy, did he fit in with Elias Pettersson and Jake DeBrusk. It was only training camp, but he looked really good. And seeing stuff like that, it's like, hey, he earned the opportunity to try out at the very least, right? And if he goes in preseason and looks dangerous and is setting up looks and is taking solid shots and getting open, if he the hand can be forced, it's not like we're going in and it's like, oh, Pettersson's going to play with Jake DeBrusk and Niels Höglander. He's never played with Jake DeBrusk before. He's played with Niels Höglander a handful, a lot of games last year, but it kept not working and they kept switching him off. And so it's not like Pettersson has these line mates that he's stuck with forever, right? It's not like Miller and Besser or Garland and Joshua. It's it's Pettersson and Mikheyev who's gone, and Höglander sometimes, and sometimes it was Pius Suter, and there's so many guys that he had to play with that. If Lekkerimaki goes out and he's the best option, or he's a really good option, there's no reason why there's not that spot open, especially with Joshua out, right? And it doesn't have to be permanent. It could be like, hey, we expect Joshua back in 2 months. Hey, come play with us for 2 months. And if you're good enough to stick, you're good enough to stick. And if not, hey, go tear up the AHL. I'm really excited to see what he looks like. I'm trying not to get my hopes too high. But yeah, why not give him the shot?
It's funny when you said, unlike Miller and Besser, who are attached at the hip, that PD hasn't had that running mate. I remember this. I remember when Pettersson got drafted, Parker, because someone reminded me of my little goofy bad vlog I made right when they drafted PD. I was talking about PD and Jonathan Dahlin basically being the new Sedins.
Yeah.
Well, one guy turned out okay.
Yeah. I mean, that one didn't work out too well, did it?
No, not at all.
But obviously, he had the long stint with Besser, and that went, they played good together. But Besser's found a home with JT Miller, and we talk about it all the time. This the way that forward lines are built in the NHL now, especially with this team, is in pairs. Mm-hmm. You have two guys who work really well together, and you stick a guy on their wing. And we're really hoping, because these two guys are signed for the next 7 years, that Pettersson and DeBrusk can be those two guys together.
Yeah.
But if Lekkerimaki also fits with Pettersson, now you got options.
Yeah.
And I'd love, hey, throw them all out there, right? I mean,
Yeah.
DeBrusk is a left winger, Lekkerimaki is a right winger. It adds up.
Yeah.
So you're either doing that, or you're putting two lefties with Pettersson and DeBrusk and Höglander, or you're bumping Sherwood up there as a righty, or Sprong as a righty. I guess you could put Garland up there for the time being while Joshua's out. Like there's a ton of stuff you could do, because they do have a fair share of right-handed guys up front. But the door is open for Lekkerimaki to try to make a push.
And then what's interesting is with Teddy Bluger. Now remember, Bluger is out for a week or so, or a week or two. So that doesn't mean it means he might miss a bit of preseason, but he should be back for the regular season. But now you had guys like Aatu Ratu and Neo Zaman getting a chance in the, what you call it, the fourth line or the fifth line. So what was interesting is everyone's talking about this Garland Höglander, so the two spark plugs on the wings, with Aatu Ratu in between them, and who apparently, by all accounts, was able to keep up, because one knock on Ratu's being his foot speed or lack thereof. But he's only 21 years old. Remember, he's only 19 when we traded for him. Yeah, so there's still some hope for Ratu, and it might not be this season, but it was apparently that line did really well in training camp. And Garland had that nice goal assisted by Arshdeep Bains, who was on the other team, of course. But the Garland and Höglander. I wonder if we see that, because if you're moving Höglander off of PD's line for DeBrusk, then he needs a new home, unless you flop into the right wing, and then he could play with Garland as the left winger, and then you just got to put a center in there.
That's crazy. I keep forgetting how young Ratu is.
Yeah.
So you look at his stats, right? So we traded for him, and he did fine in the AHL, right? 52 games that season. He had 27 points. Yeah. Then last year, he had 72 games. He had 52 points. He had 18 goals, 34 assists. As a 20-year-old in the AHL, right? That's nothing to sneeze at. Oh, that's a player who very well could, sneak in as a fourth liner, especially you put him on the third line with those two guys, right? That could be a fun line. With Bluger out, that opens the door at least for that push in camp, right? Right. Because one thing that this team is hoping to have is some depth, because guys are going to get hurt, right? Obviously, Josh was out for some time. Like you mentioned, it's training camp, and Bluger's out for a week, right? Guys are going to go down, and if we have too many options, that is a great problem to have. If we're like, oh man, I wish we could bring Lekkerimaki up, but there's just too many guys, right? It's like, great, Lekkerimaki will play games then, because someone will go down at some point, and that's a good guy that you can slot in. Yeah. It's a good problem to have. That I'm really excited to actually watch preseason in depth, and look at the guys who are playing and analyze how well they're doing with each other, and just see how guys look. Does that guy look like he's ready to play, 65 NHL games this year?
Right. Two names that I didn't hear that much of, I want to hear more of, were Sprong and Sherwood. Now, both Sherwood's, I think, 2 or 3 years, right? Where Sprong's only 1 year. And both guys have an opportunity as well. Do you have hopes for both of them? I don't know. Sprong intrigues me, but I think Sherwood has the bigger upside, or maybe I have it backwards. Maybe both guys are going to thrive this year. I don't know.
I think Sherwood has a higher floor, but I think Sprong could have a higher ceiling.
Okay.
Sherwood's 2 years, $1.5 million.
Okay.
I'm excited about Sherwood. I didn't see a lot on him, but I think I saw Quadrelli being pretty high on him out of camp. Right. As sort of a Sherwood truther, so to speak. Yeah. So I'm hoping, and I like that guy. I think he's a really good depth guy. I think he's a guy who can put up 30 points in a season. He can control the pace. He can, play a good, solid defensive game. He had a positive Corsi last year with Nashville. Yeah. I think he can be pretty good.
And then people were talking about who has the best shot on the team. I know there's some votes for Sprong. There's some votes for Lekkerimaki, who hasn't even made the team yet. Those are two names just there that we didn't have last year, which is we know DeBrusk can snipe too. So I'm looking forward to, and Sprong and Sherwood would be kind of like secondary pieces to I'm really looking forward to the increased offensive capability. Exactly what you said, that you can slot guys in different places. That's, to me, I think we know. I think we know what the 3D pairings are going to look like. I think we know that it's going to be Lankinen and Shelovs until Demko comes back. So really, I think you'd agree. There's no intrigue on the back end or in the goaltending crease. It's really the 4 forward lines.
Yeah, the forwards are where all the interesting. I'm interested to see what the pairings look like. I think we know what they'll look like, but it seemed like they might have been a little different in camp. But camp is camp, right? You never know.
Camp. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just looking at it. It's like, how is this team not going to be better offensively than last year?
Right.
Like, yeah, getting rid of Mikheyev and adding DeBrusk is one.
Yeah.
My brain's a little bit foggy today. But who's the guy that we were playing for us last year that we got from Toronto? Lafferty. Sam Lafferty. Replacing Sam Lafferty with like a Kiefer Sherwood or Dan Heinen
for Beauvillier. Like
Beauvillier for Sherwood, let's say, right? Those are all, and then throw Sprong in the mix, and maybe you have Lekkerimaki coming up, right? Like this is a team that's got some weapons, even compared to last year. And like I said, they were 8th in goal scoring last year. And I think you lose maybe a bit of offense from Zadorov and Cole. Replacing it with forward and Desharnais, but I'm hoping that Hronek can step up a little bit, and I'm hoping that Hughes can be even better, which is a high bar for a reigning Norris winner. But he says he's going to be better offensively, and I don't know why we'd ever doubt anything that he says he can do. Yes. So if he says he's going to be more dangerous offensively, sign me up.
Yeah. And you and I both have talked about, in our instant reaction to the Lindholm contract in Boston was, wow, that's an overpay. Thank goodness that's not going to be us in a few years. But he did play very well in the playoffs. That helped him get that new contract for sure. So I'm a tiny bit concerned whether you played Lindholm as your 3C or had PD move to the wing and played Lindholm as your 2C. He was so good for us in the playoffs. So that leadership, that right hand shot, taking draws, that will be one thing to kind of monitor. He didn't add a lot in offense, admittedly, but I think there are a lot of little things. There's that term that he did, though. So again, I didn't want to sign him to what Boston signed him for, but we may miss him for a little bit for his other intangibles. Just to throw it out there.
Yeah. Absolutely, but I think they've definitely replaced him in bulk. Which is good, and I like the competition that we have now, right? Like. Mm-hmm. You got to imagine if this team's suffering at any point of the season or struggling at any point of the season, like they're like, hey, we've got guys pushing for your jobs, right?
Yes.
Like, hey, Daniel Sprong, you're not scoring. Like Lekkerimaki is nipping at your heels. He's put up, he's got 10 goals in 22 games in the AHL, right? He wants your spot, right? Yeah. Things like that, I think can add a lot, right? Just that competitive nature. And I don't think this team struggles for competitiveness. I think all the guys who are here at this point are essentially here because of this management group, right? Mm-hmm. Like there's no one really left of the old guard, right? I guess that Besser contract, but Besser's great, and they're not really. I don't think they're issuing it. And same with Garland, right? That contract was already given out, but everyone else is pretty new on their deals. And Quinn Hughes is an exception, but he's the cornerstone of the team, so that doesn't count either. So I think all these guys are like wanting to play this style of hockey, right? Rick Tocchet hockey. And we learned last year, hey, it's a pretty good style of hockey, right? I was worried when we got Rick Tocchet, like, oh, we're going to be a boring defensive team. It's where the 8th most goals last year. That's fine by me, right? I think this team, I think the level of compete is going to be really high.
If I went back to my tweets, or at least my private conversation with friends when they're rumored to bring in Tocchet in, I'm such a moron, man. Back then, I looked at the Phoenix or Arizona Coyotes record. I didn't even think that where they were in their development. I was like, oh, Tocchet, he doesn't know how to coach. Oh, he got mixed up in this thing and with the league. And I was so closed off, maybe because I was kind of not brainwashed, but I was taken aback, swept up in the Bruce, there it is euphoria. But I am glad that I was wrong, and I'm not afraid to admit it.
Yeah, I was wrong too. I mean, and it didn't feel like that crazy of a thought at the time because we had been getting thrown wrong decisions at us for the last, decade, right? Yeah. Every single guy that they brought in was essentially a mistake a lot of the time, right? So it was, it was very easy to have that negative reaction. Yeah, Tocchet hadn't, usually, we saw Tocchet as what sort of his facade is, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, sort of a meathead from who played in the 80s, bruiser, 2,000 penalty minutes, whatever it was. But no, you hear the guy talk, and you love the guy, right? So Obviously, the results on the ice help a lot.
Yeah.
But he knows his stuff, and he gets the most out of his guys, and that's all you can ask for out of a coach. So I'm
sure.
happy to take the L on that one. I've been right about a lot though. That Louis or the Oliver Ekman-Larsson trade, they won. I hated it. But
I hear you. Okay, last thing, and then we'll get to the people. NHL announced more details of their Amazon Prime.
Yes.
So that Inside the NHL series, that looks pretty cool. You see Connor McDavid basically screaming at his teammates, which is kind of cool in the trailer. Then we have I don't know if it's all Monday night games, but Monday night games are going to be on Amazon Prime. Affects the Canucks for 4 games. So 4 games will be on Amazon Prime. So just what do you think? Apparently, because I had to read up on this, everything from access to state-of-the-art, advanced stats tracking to just kind of a different feel, maybe expanding the audience to people who just sit on Hulu and Amazon Prime and Netflix and Disney Plus streaming all day. So I've had that discussion with a couple of people too. Is it the potential of better audiences, newer audiences versus not alienating, but maybe alienating people who are tried and true fans and don't subscribe to streaming services? Or do we got to sit back and say, big picture, this is how you got to grow the game?
Look, for fans of the NHL, it's straight up not good, right? Like it's an extra barrier, right? For for me, it doesn't affect me. I have Prime, right? So for me, I don't really care. It's like I look at the MLB as an example. I pay $100 a year basically to watch every Mariners game, and because it's the only way to get them in Vancouver.
Right.
However, 8 Fridays of the year, let's actually probably around 8 games on Fridays. The games are on Apple TV Plus, so they're blacked out on my MLB subscription, which is annoying because I've paid money to watch all the games, and now I don't have those 8 games that are on Apple TV Plus. Now, I will say those games that are on Apple TV Plus, they are so much better picture quality than cable. The stats that they show on the screen are awesome. It's a way better broadcast, but it sucks that it's inaccessible, right? There will be less people watching those games, straight up. And that's going to be the same thing here. If they make it a really good product, then I'm okay with it. But just for my sake, because I will be watching the game anyways, and I have Prime already. But there's a lot of people who are just going to be like, I'm just not going to watch that one then. It's a Monday night anyways. Like it's not like it's a, usually they're not going to be like huge marquee matchups. And, I don't think, I think for anyone who has Prime, it's not an issue. But, adding an extra subscription service, that's whatever it is, like $100 a year, $120 a year, whatever it is, right? Like that sucks for the fans. You see the NFL doing it, right? Like I was watching Monday Night Football tonight, and they're like, this game next Sunday streaming exclusively on Peacock. It's like, who wants that? Right? Who wants another thing that they have to be paying for? Because there's a lot of people, like I pay a lot of money for cable every year, and I could get the games illegally if I wanted to for free, but I like having as soon as possible, because I like to be on Twitter or whatever during the game, and I like to be up to date. And I like the higher quality and whatever. But it's not cheap, right? It's expensive to have cable, and then you have to have the sports, you have to pay for Sportsnet on top of that, or you can have Sportsnet now. Like that's already not cheap. And now it's like, hey, here's 4 games I have to pay extra for, right? Where, remember the pay-per-view days?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You're paying, $4.99 or whatever it is to watch the Canucks game, or it's $5.99 if you want HD. Like that's, that sucks.
That's such a good point. And I was thinking about that while you were talking there is, have we gone so far the other way? I'm not calling out any of the viewers in here tonight, but where we collectively are spoiled in that we can basically watch all 82 games. Now this year it's 78 games plus 4 on Amazon, but that's still 60 more games than we used to get when the Canucks were barely on TV, right? Back in the day. So I don't know. I guess different strokes for different folks. Depends on your perspective, depends on what you think is fair, what you think is just, but kind of interesting. And as a couple people mentioned, especially Justin said that they announced that Mark Messier will be the host during the Canucks games, which is awesome.
Oh, great. That's a good way to get people excited, I'm sure.
Yes. What is this? Yeah.
Look, I'll just say, if you don't have Amazon Prime, you can find a way to watch the game if you care enough. Save your money. You don't have to give the $1 trillion company your your $12 a month or whatever, if you're not going to use it for shipping. Yeah, you can find a way. I am really excited about this series though.
Yeah.
That Prime's putting out. That trailer today got me excited. That Connor McDavid clip, it's like, oh, they're in there, right? Like that was good. We got the sort of title of the 6 episodes that it's going to be. Episode 4 has Quinn Hughes on it.
Okay,
which is
good.
Cool. So episode 1 is Nylander and Pasternak. Episode 2 is Forsberg and Eichel. Episode 3 is Swayman and Kachuk. Episode 4 is Hughes, Landeskog, and Trouba. It's called The Captains. And then episodes 5 and 6 are Cup or Bust. So Cup or Bust part 1 is episode 5, and that's McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman. It says featuring, but I think it's the whole team, sort of, right? Like they're in the dressing room. And then episode 6 is Kachuk and McDavid. It's probably, just the final is going to be that last episode. I'm really excited. I think it's going to be really good TV.
Yeah. And are they releasing? I didn't see this part. Are they releasing 1 per week kind of thing?
I don't know.
Or is this a binge, like 6 hours sitting, not getting up?
I'm not sure. I can tell you in probably 2 seconds here if I can find it.
While Parker's doing that, everyone start to get your questions in. We will go through an abbreviated ask us questions and we answer them. So you can start to get those in right now. But a warning, there are 140 of you in here, which is great. And we only have about 7 or 8 minutes to answer questions. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it just says, at least on the NHL's press release, it just says we'll launch globally on Friday, October 4th.
Yeah.
I feel like, to me, they should drop the whole thing because that benefits me and also builds up that excitement for the season. I think if, episode 6 releases on November 12th or whatever that would end up being, it might kill it a little bit. But no, like that's appointment viewing next Friday night. Like that might be a 6-hour marathon.
Wow. Very cool. Very, very cool. You ready to go to questions for about 5 or 6 minutes to end off?
Let's do it.
All right. Irvin, with the additions of DeBrusk, Heinen, Sherwood, and Sprong, what does it say about what the Canucks are trying to accomplish? Fast guys who can score. What do you say? Truly.
I mean, they're for the most part, they're good players at reasonable contract values, right? Like all of these guys that you look at, right? DeBrusk at 7 years, but $5.5 million for DeBrusk, I think is a great deal. Dan Heinen at $2.25, Sherwood at $1.5, Sprong under $1 million, right? These are like, these are players with ceilings. Like these are players that I think are maybe I'm a little not 100% on Sprong, but floor wise, but DeBrusk, Heinen, and Sherwood, I think no matter what are going to be very solid contributors to your lineup. And if they're not contributing, I think they're going to be, staples either on the kill or just in general two-way style. Sprong is under $1 million and could score 25 goals. I think what they're trying to accomplish is just getting good players that they think will buy into their system that don't break the bank. Right. And I think they've done a really, really good job of that.
Good. I am not going to the Abbey game on Wednesday. Are you?
I am not.
Okay. But yes, I agree, Judo. It will be fun to watch Lekkerimaki, PD, and DeBrusk. Edmund says, do you think that Kevin Lankinen is an upgrade over to Smith? And do you think bringing Lankinen will hurt Shelov's development?
I think he is a minor upgrade over Casey DeSmith. I think he's very, very similar, in like numbers and, sort of situation, like very similar. We'll bring him and hurt Shelov's development. If anything, it'll help, right? It's now instead of, when Demco's healthy, instead of Shelov's playing once every 3 or 4 games, well, now he can play, every game in the AHL basically, and come up for some NHL games if they need him, right? Because he's waiver exempt. If they want to get him a couple NHL games for development, I think it's good.
Yeah. Are you a Jersey guy?
So young.
Yes. Spartan is asking, which is cooler, my dad's 2011 stick jersey, Hansen, or my reverse retro, is that what that means? Hoglander with his rookie number. Which one would you rather have?
36? Or no, what number was Hoglander? Was he 36?
Yeah, now he's 20.
He's 21.
Yeah. No, 36 sounds right.
That's crazy. Yeah, it was 36. I don't know. I think Hansen's cool.
Yeah, he's good. Although he annoys me when he's on the radio, but that's for another show. What young star aside from Lekkerimaki are you most excited to make an impact this upcoming or next season? So I'll start with this one, Jeremy. I want to see what Tom Verlander can do. Obviously, he he didn't come to prospects. He concentrated on NCAA, didn't want record eligibility, all those things. But he could be the right shot guy, a nice number 2 right behind Hronek. Of the guys that I saw, though, that aren't named Lekkerimaki, we talked about Ratu a little bit. DPD, for me, Elias. I heard that we call Elias Pettersson is the forward and Elias Pettersson is the defenseman. Regardless, he's kind of a throwback, a little bit, kind of a bit nasty, decent skill, not the fastest or the most fleet of foot, but I think he could be a solid, third pairing guy down the road, fill in that left side. So he kind of intrigues me a little bit. How about you, Parker?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. He's big. He's 6'4", 209. Yep. That's great. Yeah, I'm hoping we see a little bit of Baines this year. In the I hope he does really well in the AHL this year. He's 23, so we're starting. He's only really played the 2 years in Abbotsford, right? But he improved, right? His first year 38 points, last year 55 points in fewer games. So he was almost a point per game guy in Abbotsford last year. And when he had played for the NHL team, he didn't look great.
Right.
But put another AHL season under his belt, or half an AHL season under his belt if you need to call him up at some point. I think he could be a good depth piece in the future.
Awesome. Do you think Besser gets traded before the deadline?
No.
I agree.
This is at worst, he's a rental, right? If you're genuinely not going to re-sign him, like he's your rental for the playoffs. And like, what are you gonna? If you're second in the Pacific Division and fourth in the conference, you're gonna trade Besser and then for like a first and a second, and then go trade those for another Besser? That doesn't add up to me.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Unless Demco's injury is like really bad and this team's no longer this team's now competing for a wild card spot, then maybe they say, hey, let's recoup. And in that case, you're going for 23, 24-year-old prospects to try to get that window, not draft picks necessarily. But yeah, I'm hoping we're not in that scenario come February, March.
Yeah. A couple more. What do you think happens with Jeremy Swayman?
Yeah, they'll do. I don't think he's going to not play this year, right? I'm sure he either signs or he gets traded. He's so good, though. Like, he deserves a lot of money. But hey, they
got signed today. So now there's only
needed Lindholm and Zadorov over there. They didn't have the money.
Yeah, no, that's true. So Swayman's one of only 2 or 3 RFAs left now. They're slowly coming off the market. Yeah. Yep. Who was the most overhyped player coming out of the training camp for Canucks?
I don't know. Was anyone super hyped up? I mean, Lekkerimaki might be, right? But I think that's just excitement to see a new prospect. We have this every year, right? Remember Dane Fox?
We've
been here before. It happens with every team in every training camp, and I don't think we should be, chastising people for it. I don't know. Was anyone really super hyped up though? Like it felt like I honestly didn't hear like a ton of stuff from camp. It was all just sort of like, yeah, everyone looks fine.
No, you're right. And the way that Zhao asked the question, I don't think anyone was overhyped, like meaning they didn't live up to expectations, because you're exactly right, Parker. Aside from Lekkerimaki, I don't think there were any huge expectations. And because
there was no Ole Levy situation. Yeah. Of him being passed out by the board, right? Like there wasn't any of that.
That's funny. Japan says, let's hope Sprong is not another Kuzmenko. The good thing is, though, Japan, I agree, but at least it's a contract you can bury, you can get rid of pretty easy. We're not tied in 5 years or whatever Kuzmenko's contract was.
If you're trading him to get another Zadorov, that ain't too bad, right? You got him for free.
Yeah. So let's go. Last one. A nice preview to next week's show. The question is, do you think Höglander will beat his point total? What was it? It was like 4. No.
He had 24 goals, 12 assists, so 36 points.
36.
I think he does, especially if he does get time with Pettersson. I think we're talking 45. I don't think he's not scoring 24 even strength goals again this year. I think that's a little absurd. But I could see him getting some power play time, especially on PP2. I could see it. Yeah, I could see him scoring 40, 45 points. I don't think that's too out of the round. Like, he only had 12 assists last year, right? Like, I think he gets more than that, and I think he probably has a few less goals.
Yeah, we will. You'll have to tune in next week to our prediction show to see if I go over or under 36 points, or Parker's. He says he's going to predict 45 points, but we'll see what he actually does next week.
Absolutely. All right, folks. Thank you very much for joining us. We're next week, next Monday, we're gonna have games to review. We're gonna have predictions hopefully ready for you guys, so you can get those in well in advance of the season starting. We're gonna have 5 games to talk about by next Monday.
Wow.
Which means I got to break the notepad out, because that's a lot. It's essentially going to be a post-game show. Canucks play Monday at 6 p.m.
Do you think we should bump our predictions to October 7? Because
I think we'll do them on the 7th, but I want to have the spreadsheet ready so people can submit.
Okay.
But we will do them. We'll do ours on the 7th during our sort of season preview.
Yeah.
But yeah, folks, thank you all for joining us. If you're here and you haven't hit like yet, hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button. We're really close to 2,000, like really close. So hit the subscribe button. Otherwise, if you missed any part of the show, you can find it here on YouTube. You can scroll back to the beginning, or you can find it on your favorite podcast platform in a matter of 15 minutes or so. Clay, any final words?
Yeah, looking forward to catching up with you next week, Parker. I mentioned to you I'll be out of town, but I got word that I'm in a hotel, not someone's house, waking them up at 1 a.m. So I'll be coming to you from South Carolina next. Am I Charlotte? Yeah,
home of hockey.
Yeah, I'll be South Carolina next Monday, 1 a.m. their time, 10 p.m. here. But no better time to talk Canucks hockey than 1 a.m. from a hotel room in Charleston, South Carolina.
And hopefully I'll have a working camera. All right, folks. Thank you all very much for joining. Like I said, hit subscribe, hit like. Have a good night.